Have you ever been around car people listening to them talk about a car's personality and how it handles the power and maybe felt a bit lost?
Uh-huh. Like you appreciate the car, but the language they use?
Exactly. All the 3.0L V6 this and all-wheel drive that. It can make it tough to really get what makes cars feel different from each other.
It really can. It feels like a barrier sometimes, doesn't it? People often haven't had that easy way into understanding the basics.
Totally. And that's what this deep dive is all about. We want to give you a shortcut, basically, a way to confidently grasp the core stuff engines, transmissions, drivetrains.
Yeah, the real building blocks.
So you can actually jump into those conversations, have your own opinions, and understand why a car feels the way it does.
And it's interesting how these parts, in all their different combinations, create everything from your standard commuter car right up to like $1 million hypercar.
Definitely. By the end of this, you should have a good handle on the basic layout of pretty much any car.
And maybe even pick up a few facts that might surprise some folks who think they know cars pretty well.
Okay, let's dig in. Starting with the engine, the heart of the car, right?
Absolutely.
Now, the super detailed internal workings, how every little piece moves, that's maybe for another time.
Yeah, you don't need all that for a good conversation.
Right. What's key is the basic idea. You've got cylinders, pistons, pumping air and fuel, then boom, combustion.
Yeah.
That creates force.
Rotational force.
That ultimately moves the car. It's where the power starts.
That conversion is everything. And honestly, if you want the quick version of a car's character, just look at the engine name, like 3.0L V6.
Ah, the code.
Exactly. That little string of letters and numbers. It tells you a surprising amount about what the car is designed for.
Okay, so break it down. Where do we start with that code?
Usually the easiest thing to spot is the last number. That tells you how many cylinders it has.
Okay, so like 4-cylinder.
Yeah, 4 cylinders. Very common. Think small, often cheaper, lighter cars, Honda Civic, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Then maybe 8 cylinders.
Right. Step up to 8, you're usually looking at faster, sportier cars. Think Mustang, Corvette, more power potential.
And then you get the crazy stuff. 16 cylinders.
Yeah, you see that in extreme performance cars, like a Bugatti. Just immense power.
So the number gives you a sense of scale. What about the letter next to it, like the V in V6?
That letter tells you about the engine's shape, the physical layout of those cylinders, which actually matters for like how it fits in the car and even handling.
Okay.
So V means the cylinders are split into 2 banks kind of facing each other at an angle, usually about 90 degrees, making that V shape.
And what's the most common shape then?
For smaller engines, especially 4 cylinders, it's usually inline or straight, just an I. Cylinders all lined up in a row, simple, common.
Right. But I've heard BMW really likes inline 6s, not V6s. What's that about?
Yeah, that's a classic BMW thing. They argue an inline 6 is inherently smoother.
Smoother. How?
It's about natural balance. The forces kind of cancel each other out better than in a V6, so you need less complex balancing stuff inside. Leads to that really smooth, refined feel they like.
Interesting. Okay, what other shapes are there?
Well, you've got the boxer or flat engine.
Yeah.
Sometimes called HRS.
Subaru and Porsche, right?
Exactly. They're famous for it. The cylinders lie flat, pointing away from each other.
Why do that? Seems unusual.
The big advantage is a lower center of gravity. Because the engine is flat, it sits lower down in the car.
Ah, so better handling.
Precisely. Less body roll in corners makes the car feel more agile, more planted. Big deal for sporty cars.
Okay, cool. Any other weird ones?
There's the W layout. You see it in Bentleys, Bugattis. It's not really a W shape. It's more like 2 very narrow V engines nestled really close together. Super clever packaging.
Why? Just to fit more cylinders in?
Pretty much. Lets them cram a W12 or even that W16 into a space that's surprisingly compact. Avoids making the car enormous. And there's also the VR layout, like in some Volkswagens. Kind of similar idea, lets them fit 6 cylinders where maybe only an inline 4 would normally go, like in the Golf R.
Okay, so number of cylinders, the layout.
Yeah.
What about the first number, the 3.0L part?
Displacement. That's just the total volume of all the cylinders combined, measured in liters.
So a 3.0L V6 means
each of those 6 cylinders has about half a liter of volume. Or 500 cc cubic centimeters. Add them all up, you get 3.0 liters total.
Got it. So comparing, like, a new Civic might have a 1.5-liter 4-cylinder, while that Bugatti we mentioned has a massive 8.0L 16-cylinder. Big difference.
Huge difference in potential power output, yeah. So, okay, how does the engine get the air it needs for combustion?
Right. Needs air and fuel.
Most engines are what we call naturally aspirated. The piston moving down just sucks the air in. Standard stuff.
But sometimes that's not enough.
Well, if you want more power without necessarily making the engine physically bigger, you can use forced induction, basically forcing more air in.
Okay.
Two main ways, turbochargers and superchargers. More air means more oxygen for the bang.
Bigger bang, more power.
Exactly. More horsepower.
So what's the difference? Turbo versus supercharger.
It's how they're powered. A turbocharger uses the exhaust gases coming out of the engine stuff that's normally wasted to spin a little turbine.
Okay.
That turbine then spins another wheel that compresses fresh air and shoves it into the cylinders.
And a supercharger.
That's driven directly by the engine itself, usually with a belt connected to the crankshaft. It just uses engine power to cram more air in.
Is one better?
They have different characteristics, different feels, but the big trend now is using forced induction, especially turbos, on smaller engines.
Why is that?
Lets car makers get good fuel economy and the kind of power you'd normally expect from a much larger engine. Kind of the best of both worlds sometimes.
Makes sense. Okay, so engine makes power,
Right.
but that power needs to get to the wheels somehow.
Right. Enter the transmission.
Right.
And the drivetrain.
Let's start with the transmission. That's about gears, right?
Yep. Changing gears to make the best use of the engine's power. Two main types you hear about. Automatic and manual.
Automatic. That's what most people have. The car shifts gears by itself.
Exactly. Even the ones with paddle shifters behind the steering wheel. The car's computer is still ultimately controlling the shift. It decides when and how.
Prioritizing, like fuel saving or going faster.
Right. Then you have the manual
A
gearbox.
stick shift. 3 pedals.
That's the one. The driver does all the work, clutch pedal, moving the shifter. It's definitely more involved.
And car enthusiasts tend to prefer it.
Oh yeah, big time. It's more engaging, more satisfying for many people. You feel more connected to the car, requires more focus.
Cool. So engine power goes through the transmission.
Yeah.
Then what? How does it get to the wheels?
That's the drivetrain. It's about which wheels get the power. 3 main setups here. First, all-wheel drive, AWD.
Power to all 4 wheels, like Subarus are famous for.
Exactly. Great for slippery conditions, snow, mud, rain, gives you maximum traction.
Sounds like the best option then.
Well, there are trade-offs. AWD systems are more complex. More parts mean more potential power loss just turning everything.
Yeah, less efficient.
Typically, yeah. And also heavier and usually more expensive to build and buy.
Okay, so what are the other options?
Rear-wheel drive. RWD power only goes to the back wheels.
Like those muscle cars, right? Mustangs, Camaros, and sports cars too.
Yep. Very popular for performance cars. It offers a really good balance. Think about when you accelerate hard.
The car kind of squats down at the back.
Exactly. Weight shifts to the rear. And since those are the wheels getting the power in RWD, that weight shift actually pushes them down harder, improving grip just when you need it.
Clever. Okay, so what's the most common setup then?
For most regular cars, especially commuter cars, it's front-wheel drive, FWD.
Power only to the front wheels.
I'll write that
Just
down.
click again.
Right. It's generally the cheapest and lightest way to build a car. Engine, transmission, drive wheels, all packaged neatly up front.
But maybe not the best for performance, because the weight shifts off the front when you accelerate.
Correct. Traction can be more limited under hard acceleration compared to RWD or AWD. But for everyday driving, it's fine. Usually offers good fuel economy, and the handling is generally predictable, maybe safer for inexperienced drivers than RWD can sometimes be.
Okay, that makes sense. So we know where the power goes.
Yeah.
What about where the engine sits? Does that matter?
Oh, absolutely. Engine placement has a huge impact on handling and balance. Most cars are front engine right up front under the hood.
Standard.
Yeah. But then you get into exotic cars. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens. They're often mid-engine.
Meaning the engine's behind the driver, but before the rear axle.
Exactly. The engine is usually the heaviest single part of a car. Putting it in the middle helps balance the weight distribution front to back.
Why is that good?
Makes the car easier to rotate, to turn. It feels more agile, more willing to change direction. Huge benefit for handling.
And then there's Porsche. They like putting the engine way out back, right? Rear engine.
That's their signature, yeah. Especially the 911. Putting all that weight over the rear wheels gives them incredible traction, especially coming out of corners.
Okay, one more drivetrain thing. I've heard people talk about LSDs. Not the drug.
No, definitely not. LSD stands for limited slip differential. It's actually really important for performance cars.
Okay, what does it do? What's a regular differential?
Okay, so in probably 95% of cars, you have an open differential. Its job is to let the left and right wheels turn at different speeds when you go around a corner.
Right, because the outside wheel travels further.
Exactly. But the downside is power takes the path of least resistance. So if one wheel hits ice or spins up in the air,
All the power goes to that spinning wheel, and the other wheel does nothing.
bingo, you get stuck or just spin one tire uselessly.
So the limited slip differential limits that slip.
Precisely. When one wheel starts spinning way faster than the other, the LSD kicks in and sends more power to the wheel that still has grip.
Ah, so both wheels are trying to push the car forward.
Yes. It's crucial for getting good traction out of corners, for driving hard, and even for doing controlled drifts, because it keeps both drive wheels working together to some extent.
Got it. Okay, wow. Engine type, transmission, drivetrain, engine location, LSD, lots of pieces.
But see how they start to fit together. Now we can use these pieces to understand different types of cars.
Yeah, let's try it. How about the Econo box?
Okay, Econo box.
All right.
Think Chevy Spark, maybe an older Hyundai Accent.
Yeah.
Basic transportation.
Well, probably front engine,
Yep,
front wheel drive,
almost certainly.
small engine, maybe 4 cylinders, naturally aspirated.
Usually. Built for cost and fuel economy. Not really about fun or luxury. Just gets you from A to B.
Okay, next. Muscle car.
Muscle car. Think power. Straight line speed. American icons often.
So big engine. V8 probably.
Usually a V8, yeah. Sometimes supercharged for even more grunt. Think Mustang, Camaro, Challenger.
Drivetrain.
Almost always rear-wheel drive for that acceleration squat and smoky burnout.
But maybe not the best at corners.
Generally, no. They tend to be big, heavy. Handling isn't the top priority. It's about that raw, brute force feel.
Got it. How about luxury cars?
Luxury. Focus shifts here. Smoothness, quietness, comfort, high-quality interior.
Engines? Still big sometimes.
Often, yeah. Maybe a smooth V8 like an Lexus LS, or even a super smooth V12 like a Rolls-Royce Phantom. But the power delivery is refined, effortless, not aggressive like a muscle car.
Drivetrain could be RWD or AWD maybe?
It'd be either, yeah. Depends on the brand and model. Focuses on isolation and comfort.
Okay, then. Sports cars. Different from muscle cars.
Definitely different. Sports cars are usually lighter, smaller. The main focus is handling, agility, driver engagement.
Power.
Can range from just enough to a whole lot, depending on the price. But it's about the balance of power and handling, not just brute force.
So they could be based on normal cars, like a hot hatchback.
Yeah, like a Civic Type R or a Golf GTI. Or they could be purpose-built coupes, like a Mazda MX-5 Miata or a Porsche Cayman. Often still practical enough for daily driving, usable trunk.
And drivetrain.
Right.
RWD, FWD, AWD.
You see all kinds. Miatas are RWD, GTIs are FWD, some like the Nissan GTR are AWD. Depends on the car's specific goals.
Okay, and then we get into the really exotic stuff. Supercars.
Yeah, now we're talking serious compromises for performance. Supercars are all about speed, handling, lightness, and looks.
Practicality goes out the window.
Pretty much. Tiny trunks, awful gas mileage, often loud and uncomfortable for long trips. Think Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren. They're special occasion machines, really.
Mid-engine, usually.
Very often mid-engine, yeah. For that optimal balance and handling we talked about.
And then the absolute top, hypercars.
The extreme end, costing over $1 million, sometimes many millions. Pagani, Koenigsegg, Bugatti.
Pushing every boundary.
Absolutely. Engineering marvels, extremely exotic materials, incredible power, cutting-edge tech. Almost always mid-engined.
Wow. Although, you mentioned earlier, you can get that mid-engine feel without spending millions.
You totally can. That's the cool part. Older cars like the Toyota MR2 or even the Pontiac Fiero, they were affordable mid-engine sports cars.
So you could find one for under, like, 10 grand.
Yeah, potentially. Obviously not a hypercar, but they offer that same fundamental mid-engine layout and handling characteristic. A taste of the exotic on a budget, you know?
That's actually really cool. So, okay, bringing this all together.
Yeah.
Understanding these basics, engine, transmission, drivetrain, it really unlocks things, doesn't it?
It really does. You're not just looking at a car anymore. You can start to see why it is the way it is.
You can understand the choices the engineers made. Why does a Subaru feel different from a BMW? Why is a Mustang different from a Miata?
Exactly. You have the tools now to recognize the core ingredients that give a car its specific character, its flavor.
And you can join those conversations, not just listen, but actually understand and contribute. Know what makes a car tick.
You can analyze it. Front engine, RWD, V8. Okay, probably feels like a muscle car. Mid-engine, Lightweight, manual. Probably a Focus sports car.
It empowers you to figure out what you like too. What kind of driving experience appeals most?
Yeah.
So, as a final thought, when you see cars on the road, even just regular commuter cars, think about how these fundamental parts are constantly being tweaked and improved.
Yeah, it's not always about just going faster or being more luxurious.
Right. It's this ongoing quest for better efficiency, more driving enjoyment, adapting to what people need, finding clever ways to combine these building blocks.
Even in the simplest car, there's a whole story of engineering choices being told through its engine, its transmission, how it puts power down. It's a constant evolution.